The problem is there's nothing to leverage, right? What I found out was you can take a socket.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's been a while since I made a video. Typically you guys watch me work on LS engines and cars, Corvette that I currently have, but I also do have other cars. The one that we're going to be working on today is my daily driver. Got some things that I need to do to it that I'll explain to you guys, but before we do that, I do want to show you guys that I do have parts for the 408 stroker build. So got the main studs, all the bearings, oil pump, got some head studs, 2 boxes of them just in case. Got all the gauges and everything to build the motor with. That's the 408 underneath the blanket. This is actually another 6-liter block that I got not too long ago that I'm going to do something else with as part of a project. But as soon as I'm done with the car that I'm working on now, I'm going to get back to putting this engine together and then swapping it on the Corvette. Without further ado, this is my 335xi. It's a 2008. I've had this car for a while. It does still have the stock twins on it. It's got a upgraded intercooler, downpipes. It's got charge pipe, and then just a cob access port on it. The car made pretty decent power at like 18-19 pounds on 93 octane, but it is starting to smoke a little. I suspect that one of the turbos is leaking, so we're gonna take care of that in this video, or in this series of videos, we'll see, along with some other maintenance items. So first and foremost, the turbos that I ended up going with, the 17T turbos. These are just some eBay turbos that have proven to be pretty stout on these cars. Plan is to put those on and then turn the boost up a little bit just to see what she'll make. Eventually we'll go with probably E50 blend, and then see what she'll eventually make. Of course, it's got to be reliable since it is my daily driver. We got some gaskets that I ordered. These guys do come with gaskets. However, when you look on the reviews, they're hit and miss. Didn't really want to take the chance in the miss part, because to get to these guys, got to tear apart quite a few things on this car, and I'm not really interested in doing that twice. So $100, got all new gaskets. I actually will probably compare these to the ones that came with the turbos just to see if there's a difference. I was told there is a difference, but we'll see. Aside from the turbos, we also have a water pump, which mine is good. However, I am down there. I have 118,000 miles on the car. Water pump could stand to be changed because it is one of the failing components on the car. I have the thermostat, got stock coils, two-step Kohler NGK plugs. I got the, I believe this is called a transfer case activator motor. So this car is an all-wheel drive car. I keep getting the lights for a 4x4 issue, as well as brake and ABS issue. I suspect that it's this guy not engaging, which disengages the front wheels. So this car actually gets pretty squirrely since it is essentially rear-wheel drive now when the thing doesn't kick in. So I'm gonna go ahead and change that as well. I got the valve cover, which is another failure, not a high fail, but something that does fail on these cars. I believe that I do have an oil leak coming from my current valve cover, but I haven't really delved into the car to see what all is going on there, aside from just looking at it from the outside and seeing some smoke coming out of the exhaust. Lastly, we got the oil pan gasket. I'll do that as well since I'm down there. Why not? So gonna get the car lifted, get it, start taking it apart, and hopefully get it in shape to put all these new parts on and see what happens. One more thing that I'm gonna end up doing with this car while I'm working on it is I am going to do the resonator and the muffler delete. I think it's called a MPE mod. So hopefully it sounds a little bit better, not too obnoxious, because of course you guys know I do have neighbors, which by the way, if you're seeing the garage and looks a little bit different, it's because I did move. So still working on the same project, just a different location. Anyway, I'll do a quick shot from underneath the hood, just so you guys can see what's going on before I start tearing it apart. All right, so here's the undershot of the hood. The car also does have the twin, the engine intakes. This all came with the car when I bought it. So the other thing that continues to happen, or at least happened for the second time, is this charge pipe here that you see actually pops off down there, and it's very difficult to get to, so I'll have to address that as well during this session here with the car. But obviously pretty dirty. Gonna have to make sure that I clean the underside of the car or underneath the hood. So let's get to it. All right, so this is one of those good news, bad news kind of discoveries. I pulled the plastic trim and the skid pan off, and the good news is, if you look under here, my oil pan gasket doesn't seem like it's the culprit of the oil leak. However, we'll still replace it. The bad news is, I believe it is the front diff seals going out. So if you can see here, the oil is coming from where the axle goes into this piece right here that then attaches to this pan here, which ultimately drives it into the front diff. It also appears that this one back here, the seal back here, is also leaking pretty good. So not a lot of information on how to actually do this. I do have experience with all-wheel drive cars, but not necessarily this complicated. So what looks to have happened here was the gaskets seem to be going out here, and probably looks like back here as well, and it's just slowly saturating the whole bottom and then slowly making its way back here. Now, it's not to say the oil pan gasket's not leaking in certain places, because it looks like it is right there. What's weird is, to get to the oil pan gasket, you have to basically take apart this entire, let me check this. You have to take apart this whole set of parts here to get to the oil pan gasket, which means pulling the axles, or at least it looks like you gotta pull the axles. I don't see how you would not. They go in here, pull the front diff, the axles here, so I'll be doing that. In addition, if you look over here, my power steering reservoir was also leaking. So when my charge pipe popped off the, I don't know if you can see it, the elbow from the front mount, it looks like it just kind of sat there against this reservoir, and the reservoir was actually leaking down the side and got some oil or power steering fluid down there. So we'll clean that up as well. I guess I'll just start taking more stuff apart and see what else we find interesting here. I want to give you guys a quick update here. So I got majority of this stuff taken off. Quick tip for you guys: if you don't have this bolt here, which is actually a tow hook, the thread pitches, I don't know, I couldn't figure out what it is or find a bolt that fits there. The alternative is, if you have your engine support bar, you can actually take chains and wrap them underneath the engine mounts and actually hold up the engine. Eventually you will have to put a jack underneath there, which
guess is better than nothing, and it actually helps because if you have to maneuver the engine to get to bolts and whatnot, you can move it up and down a couple inches just to get to wherever you need to get to. But I ran into this issue here. I was trying to find this bolt for like 2 hours, couldn't find it, had to go with plan B. Figured I'd let you guys know that in case you run into the same exact issue. So take a quick look at the progress. I will say this, I was expecting this to be much easier as I kick half my tools down. It is not. Almost everything that I've done thus far has been an absolute nightmare to try to get off. Thermostat is off. I don't know, it took like a half hour to take that thing off simply because none of these connections, whatever they're called, these guys here that have that little clip that you have to take off, none of those come off. It's almost like they're glued on there, so you have to sit there and gently pry on them so you don't break them. That took forever, but I did get the thermostat off. The downpipes, I have both of them unbolted down there, and the very next thing is coming up here, and I'm going to be taking the downpipes off so I can start with the rest of the engine mount, remove that, and get to the turbos finally. My biggest piece of advice would be to make sure that well, actually I don't have any piece of advice. It's gonna suck, so just be patient because a lot of this stuff is super tight, super crammed. You almost don't have enough space whenever you want to do something, which is pretty annoying, but eventually it all does come apart. So see you guys shortly. Alright, so let's take a look at underneath the car. So my thoughts were that my turbos were going, as well as my oil pan gasket, as well as my valve cover gasket, and the car has sat for roughly a week, and here is the result. And you can clearly tell that the oil, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, is coming from the valve cover gasket. So that's a good thing. The turbos aren't blown. And it's interesting because the way the oil drops down, it almost looks like it kind of comes down, and if you were to look at it from the bottom, what's wet is the center housing, which would lead me to believe that the seals are blown there, but luckily they're not. Doesn't matter, still the new turbos are going to be going in. It's just, I guess, somewhat of good news to know that at least the turbos aren't completely gone. But I'll go ahead and continue to progress and continue to remove these. One thing to look out for when you're doing this on a all-wheel drive, which is a little more complicated than if you're just doing it on a front-wheel drive or a rear-wheel drive car, is all of this stuff here kind of has to be taken in a specific order. I'll try to cover that when I put the car back together, but there really isn't a way to take it all off however you want. You'll come to find out that there's certain things you have to remove, kind of like the downpipes, as a result, as it relates to the engine mount, and that could be because the way that I am holding the engine up, it might be tilted a little bit, but either way I struggle to do that. So yeah, just pay attention to what you're taking off and how you're taking it off, and just a slow progress, and continue moving forward. Alright, here's a little tip for you guys in case you run into a similar issue that I ran into, which you will because of the design of the car. Ultimately, as you're trying to take this oil pan off, you're gonna have to pull this piece off, which means that you have to pull this axle out. And what happens is you have to So the axle has these ledges here that you can pry on, like this. The problem is there's nothing to leverage, right? What I found out was you can take a socket, big enough socket, place it, do this with the other hand so you guys can see this, place it here, and use that as the fulcrum point to pop that axle out and not waste a whole bunch of time trying to figure out how to do it. So as of right now, I have this axle popped out, this is loose, other axle's popped out, and I'm beginning to take off the diff, whatever this thing is called, and then the oil pan's next. Keep you guys posted. Continuing with the work on the N54. I'm still working on getting the oil pan off. So to get the oil pan off, I got to remove the steering pump. I believe this is steering pump, yeah. So I got to remove that guy. To remove that guy, I had to remove the radiator, loosen this trans cooler, get it away because these trans lines actually ride the lip of the oil pan, so you actually have to move them. They're fairly stiff, so to move them it helps to loosen this up, and to get the steering pump off, you have to get the serpentine belt off anyway, and to get to that you got to get the radiator out. So basically you might as well just pull the block. No, it's not that bad. But now gotta take this belt off and then continue taking the bolts off of the oil pan. I'm almost done with the oil pan. One of the things that I've learned throughout this work is you're gonna have to, well, at least I did, remember this is an all-wheel drive car, you're gonna have to play with the engine height to get different clearances. So I got it supported on, I didn't have this hook as I mentioned before. Where is it? This little tow hook thing that goes in there. So I just supported it with 2 chains on each side, put the engine, well, that one you have to take off to get the turbos off, then I have to put it back on, and then the engine supported with these chains. But as you can see now, they're loose simply because I am holding the engine up with the jack just enough to tilt it up to get the radiator fan out. Work around here. I'm gonna go and take the belt off, and then I'm gonna drop the engine back down and continue with the work under the car. One thing to note when you're working on this car, if you didn't know already, I'm gonna show you. You guys need these Torx sockets, both the male and female. So highly recommend getting one of those sets online. They're fairly cheap, but the, I don't know, 50%, maybe like 75% of the bolts are these guys. The other ones are just regular standard, you know, nuts and bolts. But you have tons of these on here. So if you don't have that tool set, better get one before you start working. So gonna continue doing that. Hopefully I can show you guys how to rebuild the diff. I got it sitting over in there on the side. Well, not rebuild. Remove all the seals, replace all the seals before we put everything back together. And again, this is only for a front wheel drive or all wheel drive car. So we'll continue working on this. I'll give you guys a status update here shortly.